Hey everybody, how you doing? So this is my first podcast, and I thought I'd try and talk to you guys about whether opening up for herd immunity has a better economic outlook for Jordan, or probably any other country, but let's use Jordan as an example, since we're living the day to day and we've got a good history so far, or we had. Go Khanasris, right? Yes, so whether opening up and going for the herd immunity option has a better economic outlook for Jordan, because we are afraid of being left behind with the rest of the world opening up and then restarting economic activity, or staying the course and becoming a white spot. Which one actually has a better economic outlook? So far in Jordan, we had a good first 3 months where we managed to get things under control, and it all blew up all over again a couple of weeks ago. Our numbers from the past few weeks outmatch our numbers from the first 2 months easily, or any month, any specific month. So right now, Jordan recently, because of Eid, they opened up and they said, let's sort of increase the numbers. We've done such a good job of controlling it. It's starting to get out of hand. Let's increase it, because we need to open up the economy and get things back to normal. I can understand that. You've got 60%, 50%, 70% maybe of the economy currently shut down. You have segments completely that are out of work. You're talking about education. You're talking about education's drastically reduced. The restaurants and food providing segment, besides actually making your own food, is also drastically reduced because of the windows and times that they can operate. Places that you can go, social places, touristic restaurants, and well, sports and tourism in general. Those segments are there's no more outbound traffic coming in from abroad. There are no more tours being made. Petra is not going to hit any of its visitor targets this year. Those are realities. The Dead Sea is has been underused. Yeah, these are all these are all very harsh realities of the coronavirus and the economic shutdown since. I mean, let's be honest. The government tried to subsidize the population as much as it can. We have a third world population. Most of our public expenditure is on salaries, and we have a very high level of public expenditure compared to GDP levels. So that implies a very high rate of taxation. So every day of a lack of economic activity is a lack of tax receipts. I think it was mentioned that under normal circumstances, you've got 8 million JDs in tax receipts from fuel per day that are being lost, or 12 million, some ridiculous number. Let's say it's 8 million. It's reduced down to about what? 60% less of 8 million, 70% less of 8 million is 2 million. 2 million JDs per day. That's 6 million a day. That's not coming into the government coffers. It's true, it's not coming in anymore. You match that with, look around the rest of the population, everybody's either making less or selling less, and so therefore they're going to have to lay off people. And we've got those key segments that just aren't working anymore. Now, those people that work in those segments and sectors, they provide local demand. I mean, they make money however which way, through local consumption, through getting tourists, consulting, whichever way but they generate an income which they pay in as taxes per day, every day, and they go and they buy things. They eat just like you and me. They drive cars. They live in houses. They have the same needs we all do. We just hunt different things to get it done, to get our needs met. So these people currently, with a lockdown, there is no work for them. They are not generating income. They are requiring subsidization and welfare if they don't have, if they're day laborers or if they don't have quite enough money to get through this. So it's very tough. And this is the education sector too. And why do you need so many teachers for e-learning? It's not sustainable. I mean, their day is coming. Or why should you pay high school fees in the private sector when you aren't using any school facilities? Right? Anyways, so the longer we have a lockdown, there is more economic shutdown. True and simple fact. We're talking at least 67% of tax receipts and other things just not coming in during this shutdown. We've done 3 months. It's affected us quite badly. We've tried to open up about 50% of the economy. But there's still a massive net loss per day because of the lack of activity, especially in the tourism sector. And this is the tourism peak. Tough, right? Now, by opening up, let's be very realistic. For the forthcoming future, with 40% down, and nobody's going to be buying a house, nobody's going to be buying a car, definitely not a boat. Gym memberships are pretty much obsolete. Restaurants, going to that's something out of the question. But let's say we do open up. Let's say we go for the herd immunity option. Say we toss caution to the wind and we open up. There are some segments that we're talking about a good 30 to 40% reduction in economic activity regardless. Because some segments, like I mentioned, are just completely erased. Nobody's going to be buying houses. There is no demand for lavish weddings, even if we open up. Expenditure is down. Interest in banks is lowered massively to try and encourage people to invest. Long term, we're looking at about 2 to 3 years to develop herd immunity. And this is 2 to 3 years of a sustained 30% loss in economic activity. Nobody's going to want to come and visit Jordan if it's rife with coronavirus, right? Nobody. I mean, I wouldn't stay at home, right? Or just go for local tourism. I mean, airplanes are horrible. I mean, if you're on a plane for 2 hours, if somebody else has it, then you're definitely going to catch it, either through your nose, mouth, whether you wear a mask. I mean, only if you're wearing a hazmat suit, I guess you wouldn't catch it. And scrubbed on arrival. But yeah, that's why opening up is kind of something that the government is looking at. We need to get back to at least some semblance of 70% economic activity. But 70% economic activity over 2 years actually is much worse for us because there are other things to consider. Government is still going to have to provide a lot of subsidization. And as cases increase, they're going to have to cover the health costs of them. Covering the health costs of a ballooning amount of people. Eventually, once we reach capacity, we only have 10,000 beds in Jordan. We'll overwhelm the system when doctors start getting sick. 2, this is a third world tribalistic country. On the first day of quarantine, somebody who's rich enough to actually come back from traveling abroad, and has enough common sense to be a global citizen that has money to leave, comes back and then tell her you're going to go into quarantine because of this thing that's eating up the world, says, Khali Baba yaddakhal. Come on. And it wasn't a 10-year-old too, it was a full-grown woman. God-fearing. Go figure, right? Khali Baba yaddakhal. So that's what this is going to come to when it gets out of hand. There's going to be the haves and the have-nots. Crime's going to increase because you have 30% of the people that are unemployed. So eventually when government subsidies run out, they're going to start rioting and pushing for food. Another example of have and have-nots, we have a massive refugee population. We need an outbreak that overwhelms our system That happened in a refugee camp, where we start saying this guy is not or this family is not Jordanian, so why should we be taking care of them? It's the UN's problem. Let them foot the bill. It's a human issue. Also, when somebody who's infected is infected, not taking care of them lets them spread it even further. Stop being so short-term and Ouroboros. Ouroboros is a snake that eats its own ass and thinks it's getting full. Right now, Jordan, as a snake that's eating its own tail, is licking the back of its ears. We're continuing to consume ourselves. Opening up, sure, you've got that 70%. Fine. Costs are going to go up. So that really is going to affect our bottom line. The government's already eyeing the private sector, saying we're going to get tax revenue out of them. With lowered demand, increased tax demands and costs, you make it even less feasible for Jordan to be a place for me to produce things in. During peacetime and during economic crunch time, the threat of taxes had companies running. During a lower demand of Corona, you want to actually abuse the only segment that could bail and employ and grow? Doesn't make sense. But still, let's go for herd immunity. Herd immunity is a 2 to 3 year process. The virus, as it increases and spreads, has more chances for it to mutate. Each vaccine is dependent on each mutation. Each new mutation will require a new vaccine. Think about that. So this 2 years that everybody is talking about for herd immunity, actually, if it keeps mutating, everybody's just going to keep getting sick and sick and sick. So this is going to be a forward, long-term thing. This could be a new reality. 5-10 years. Now 2 years, in the best case scenario, 70% economic activity. That's 30% of economic activity wiped away for the next 2 years. Let's assume there is no cascading effect from it, but there is. One loss in one segment is going to push a loss in another segment. Per day, under this scenario, just on tax receipts from fuel, that's 2 million. That would be 2 million less from the 8 million we said earlier. So 6 million a day that we'd be generating. That's not bad, right? It's not that big of a loss, but 2 million a day of a loss over 2 years, you're talking about quite a couple of billion. And if that extends even further, that's gone. That increases. Just the general effect on having a couple of segments not working anymore, the tourism and all that, the massive reductions in those segments. Think about it. Long term, over 2 to 3 years, they're going to be more adversely affected. And the tax burden is going to be levied on an even smaller segment of the population, which is industry, the only segments that are allowed to work. Yep. Now, if we go for becoming a white spot, it's 5 months of complete lockdown. It's 6 million JDs less in fuel receipts per day. Over 5 months, that's 150 days. It's about 150, it's about almost 1 billion JDs. But after that, we can get back up to about 80% or 90% of economic activity. We can actually grow some segments because sectors would be able to open up, such as the tourism sector. The tourism sector opens up. That's a good segment of the unemployed from the other scenario that are generating income. The tax burden is reduced all across the board. That's the way I look at it. Look, the government has a couple of policies that just don't make sense, and if I could suggest that everybody who wants to play economic minister or economic counselor plays a game from the early 90s called SimCity. And the point of SimCity, they had a very basic economic concept in it, that if you have a population and you increase your taxes too high, the population numbers your revenues will increase, and then population will decrease because they do not want to have the high tax burden. And then you wind up having a long-term commitment to paying for services that are being underutilized. And so that system crashes down. The other scenario is you have no taxes and your population increases massively beyond the ability of you to generate and manage and pay for services. So that scenario breaks down too. It's all about being a happy medium. You don't want to be North Korea and you don't want to be Venezuela. Lack of control and complete control, which could descend into total chaos very easily. Back on our main subject, whether opening up is better or not. I've made the case so far for what to expect out of herd immunity. We would need a brand new vaccine for every single mutation. This would be a new reality going forward. Pray, God willing, that there are no other viruses that pop up. Jordan can catch up to the rest of the world in opening up, but we're all going to be hobbling quite badly. Short term, yes, there's money coming in today, but it's not going to get more. It's not going to get larger. It's going to get less as the government tries to take more in taxes, as costs increase, as economic activity decreases because of the effect of the segments that are no longer producing. And I mean, just look at the restaurant sector as a microcosm. 70% of their workforce is waiters. I'd say waiters and front of house staff. How many of them are cooks in a restaurant? You truly don't have more cooks than waiters, right? So those are all people that aren't going to be producing anything economically. Anyways, let's talk about this in part 2 about what's the outlook for becoming a white spot. So far we've made the point for herd immunity and what to expect. Please watch part 2. It's not going to be as long. Very sorry. Thank you.